He believed his financial institution was operating efficiently until he performed an incognito visit and discovered a frightened staff member under the oppressive influence of a supervisor. Derek Lawson had dedicated his entire career climbing the corporate ladder in financial services. He wasn't raised with financial privilege. He lacked the relationships that would have eased his journey. All his achievements were self-made, from nothing, beginning as a part-time cashier. While attending university, pushing through exhausting schedules and handling demanding patrons while managing his studies, he understood what working at the counter meant: to punch time cards and to struggle with financial concerns. That's precisely why, even after becoming the chief executive of Ashford National Bank, he wouldn't isolate himself in an executive suite and make choices based purely on statistics and data. Numerical reports couldn't reveal the authentic situation in your locations. The truth existed in employee lounges and the hushed discussions among staff members in the tired breaths released. After an exhausting day, so quarterly, Derek conducted anonymous visits. No business attire, no position, no corporate staff. Just an individual entering his own establishments as an everyday client. Usually he identified minor issues: excessive waiting periods, an employee battling with technology, a service representative who appeared to need some respite, but occasionally he witnessed something disturbing. This evening he selected a modest location in Columbus, Ohio. It wasn't performing poorly according to metrics. Earnings were consistent. Client satisfaction metrics were acceptable. Superficially, it resembled any standard branch, but statistics failed to show everything. Derek entered wearing a dark blue casual shirt, arms exposed, and denim pants. He resembled any typical customer dropping by after their workday. The establishment had that dusk tranquility. Just a few clients concluding business before departing home. The illumination was slightly too harsh, the temperature control slightly too frigid at the service area. Cashiers processed deposits and withdrawals with the proficiency of individuals who had completed these tasks countless times. A middle-aged patron before him struggled with his plastic card, attempting to clarify something to the cashier. The youthful woman at the counter smiled courteously, but anxiety lurked beneath her expression. Derek surveyed the surroundings. A supervisor, in rigid grey business attire, lingered nearby, observing interactions intently. Something about his demeanor seemed wrong, not merely watchful, intimidating. But Derek couldn't analyze further, because that's when he detected it. A faint stifled noise emanating from the corridor to his left. He barely registered it initially, but when the patron ahead finally proceeded, the sound became more distinct. Someone was weeping, not boisterous, not theatrical. A hushed, suppressed sob, the kind released when fighting composure. Derek shifted slightly, tracing the sound visually. The staff room entrance was partially open, and within, he glimpsed a young woman, her face downcast, fingers clutching the table edge, as if struggling for self-control. Another employee stood nearby, speaking quietly. Derek didn't recognize her, but her expression struck him forcefully. Something was seriously amiss, but the inquiry was what? And that's when Derek determined he wouldn't depart until he uncovered the truth. Derek joined the queue, his body still oriented toward the counter, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Weeping wasn't merely frustration, it was anguish. He recognized the distinction he had observed. Employees overwhelmed by hectic periods, or annoyed by problematic clients. But this indicated something more profound. His intuition urged him to approach, inquire about her well-being. But he wasn't Derek Lawson, CEO, at this moment. He was merely another client, a stranger instead. He listened. The other employee, a young man perhaps mid-20s, maintained a low voice, attempting to comfort her. Derek heard fragments. "Jasmine, you can't allow him. He doesn't possess you." Jasmine, that was her identity. Her answer was barely audible, but Derek noted the resignation in her tone. "What alternative do I have?" she whispered. "He's already indicated. If I refuse his demands, I'm terminated." Derek's expression hardened his initial thought. A client issue. Perhaps someone had intimidated. Her banks encountered their share of entitled patrons who believed they could demean cashiers. But her phrasing, "if I refuse his demands," that wasn't regarding a client, that concerned someone within the establishment. Before he could contemplate further, the cashier ahead called out, "Sir, I can assist you here." Derek approached, offering a polite smile. The young man behind the counter, Kenny, according to his identification, appeared recently graduated. How's your day progressing? Derek inquired, maintaining a casual tone. Kenny paused, just momentarily. It was nearly imperceptible, but Derek noticed it's been fine. Kenny replied, forcing a smile. How may I assist you today? Derek extracted a deposit form from his pocket, something he always carried when conducting these covert visits. Just need to complete a deposit. Kenny accepted the form and entered the account information into the system, but Derek observed it. The tension in his posture, the way his fingers hesitated above the keyboard before typing. He was distracted, nervous. Derek glanced at the supervisor near the rear of the establishment, the one with the stiff bearing and constant surveillance. His gaze shifted toward the staff room briefly. Kenny apparently noticed Derek looking because he suddenly spoke, lowering his voice. Are you employed in banking? Derek raised an eyebrow. What suggests that Kenny hesitated, then shrugged. You simply appear familiar with branch operations. Derek smiled. Yes, I formerly worked as a cashier, a long time ago. Something in Kenny's expression changed, a mixture of relief and uncertainty, as if wanting to communicate something, but unsure whether he should. Derek allowed him a moment, but Kenny glanced over his shoulder again toward the supervisor, and just like that the opportunity vanished. Kenny passed the receipt across the counter. Here you are, sir. Anything further I can assist with? Derek accepted the receipt, but he wasn't finished here. No, I'm fine, he said, pocketing it. Then lowering his voice, he added, but take care. Kenny stiffened momentarily, but Derek observed it. He moved away from the counter, heading toward the exit, but he had no intention of departing. Instead he paused near the loan officer's desk, and pretended to check his phone from here. He had a clear view of the staff room. Jasmine had dried her face and was sitting erect now, but her hands continued trembling in her lap. The young man beside her was speaking urgently, shaking his head, but she wouldn't meet his gaze, and then Derek saw it. The supervisor, Mr. Rigid Bearing, walking toward them. His movements were deliberate, calculated, like a predator approaching prey, and when Jasmine noticed him, her entire body tensed. She hastily grabbed her phone, pushing it into her pocket, and stood as if caught, doing something inappropriate. The supervisor said something Derek couldn't hear, but whatever it was, Jasmine gave the slightest, almost invisible nod. Then she walked past him, head lowered, and returned to the teller stations. Derek wasn't certain what he had just witnessed, but one thing was evident. Whatever was occurring here, it wasn't appropriate, and he wouldn't walk away. Derek watched as Jasmine returned to her position, her movements rigid and automatic. She forced a smile at the next client, but it lacked sincerity. She was functioning, mechanically, just trying to survive the day. And the supervisor, he remained near the staff room door, arms folded, watching. Derek recognized this kind of dynamic. He had encountered it previously. A harmful workplace always displayed the same indicators. Employees who recoiled when their manager approached, conversations that halted the moment a particular person entered the room. The unvoiced tension permeating the air, not obvious, not blatant, but present. If you knew where to look, he faced a decision. He could depart and address this from an executive level, investigating remotely. That was the cautious professional approach, or he could obtain his answers immediately. Derek inhaled, slowly adjusting his stance. If he wanted people to communicate openly, he needed the correct approach. He examined the room, seeking an opportunity. Kenny was assisting another client. Jasmine had returned to her station, avoiding eye contact with the supervisor. But the young man who had been in the staff room with her, he was standing near the side counter, organizing a stack of deposit forms. His jaw clenched. Derek approached, keeping his tone casual. Excuse me, do you have a writing instrument? The young man looked up, startled. Oh yeah, certainly. He retrieved one from the container beside him, and offered it. Derek accepted, but didn't withdraw. He noticed the employee's identification, Miles. Hey Miles. Derek said, lowering his voice. I couldn't help but notice your colleague seems troubled. Miles. His expression remained unchanged, but his grasp on the stack of papers tightened. She's all right. Derek tilted his head. She doesn't appear all right. Miles swallowed, eyes darting toward the supervisor, who was now near the back office, speaking with another employee. Then he exhaled, as if trying to decide whether to trust Derek or not. "She's not all right," he admitted, voice barely audible. Derek leaned slightly closer. "Is it related to a client?" Miles hesitated, and that pause revealed everything. "No," Miles murmured. It's her private matter." That was untrue, not because Miles intended to mislead him, but because he was fearful. Derek could tell by his hushed tone, and how his eyes kept shifting toward the supervisor. "How long has she been employed here?" Derek asked, maintaining a light conversational tone. "Slightly over a year," Miles answered automatically. Then he tensed. "Why?" Derek shrugged. "Just wondering if she enjoys working here." Miles released a humorless laugh. "She doesn't, but she can't afford to resign." And there it was, the genuine problem. Jasmine wasn't merely unhappy. She wasn't just stressed. She was confined. Derek's intuition intensified. He had encountered situations like this before, where employees felt immobilized, unable to leave due to financial constraints, personal challenges, or worse, intimidation. And now he suspected this wasn't simply about a poor work environment. Something else was happening here, something more significant. Before he could inquire further, Miles stiffened. Derek didn't need to turn around to understand why the supervisor was approaching them. The atmosphere changed, heavy with something unspoken. Derek could sense the power dynamic in the room shift immediately. "Everything okay here?" the supervisor asked, voice smooth but authoritative. Miles immediately lowered his gaze, occupying himself with the papers before him. "Yes, sir. Just assisting a customer." Derek turned, finally confronting the man directly. Mid-40s, immaculate suit, sharp features, eyes that had witnessed too much, and cared minimally. This wasn't merely a bad manager. This was someone who understood exactly how much influence he possessed, and relished it. The identification on his jacket read Ron Halverson. "Can I assist you with something?" Halverson asked, tone courteous but sharp. Derek offered a casual smile. "Just acquiring a pen." "Miles here was gracious enough to help me." Halverson maintained eye contact. "Good." He placed his hand on Miles' shoulder, slightly too firmly. "Let's maintain focus on work." Miles nodded quickly. "Eyes on the papers." "Yes, sir." Derek clenched his jaw, but didn't react. "Not yet." He thanked Miles, and moved away, feeling Halverson's gaze following him entirely, as he proceeded toward the door. His decision was already made. He wasn't leaving, not until he discovered exactly what was occurring in this establishment. Derek exited, allowing the evening breeze to cool his frustration. But he wasn't departing. Not yet. He walked toward his vehicle, just far enough to suggest he had concluded his business, then leaned against the hood, pretending to check his phone. In reality, he was deeply contemplating. Something wasn't logical. Jasmine was terrified. Miles was reluctant, and Halverson, that man, exhibited the demeanor of someone who thrived on dominance. Derek had managed numerous poor supervisors previously, but this was different. This was deliberate. If he wanted authentic answers, he needed to speak with someone who wasn't intimidated. And then, as if fate intervened, Kenny emerged. The young cashier from earlier was standing near the side entrance examining his phone, probably during a break. Derek made his approach. He walked up casually, hands in pockets. "Long day." Kenny looked up, startled, then relaxed upon recognizing him. "Yeah, Fridays are consistently busy." Derek nodded. "May I ask something?" Kenny hesitated, but shrugged. "Certainly." Derek maintained a light tone. "Your branch supervisor, Halverson. What's his management style?" Kenny's expression darkened. It happened quickly, just a flash, but Derek noticed he's stringent. Kenny said cautiously, "Prefers things executed." Precisely. Derek tilted his head. "That normal for supervisors?" Kenny exhaled, glancing around as if checking for listeners. Then he lowered his voice. "He's not merely stringent. Kenny struggled for appropriate terminology. He pressures people intensely, especially Jasmine." Derek crossed his arms. "How specifically?" Kenny hesitated again, as if weighing whether to reveal more. Then, in a voice barely audible, he said something that disturbed Derek profoundly. "He compels her to remain late alone." Derek's muscles tensed. "She's the only one?" he asked, maintaining an even tone. Kenny nodded affirmatively. And he's consistently addressing her like she's indebted to him. I've witnessed it honestly, how she becomes rigid when summoned to his office. It's abnormal. Derek's grip tightened around his arm. This was familiar territory for him, a supervisor who engaged in authority manipulation with subordinates, targeting those who were most defenseless, creating an atmosphere where compliance seemed like their only option. Did she ever mention anything about it? Derek inquired, and Kenny responded with a negative head motion. But she doesn't need to. It's evident to everyone. Derek exhaled deliberately. The situation had escalated from dealing with a difficult superior to confronting someone who exploited others, and that fundamentally altered his approach. I appreciate you sharing this, Kenny, Derek remarked, giving his shoulder a reassuring touch. You're showing real integrity, Kenny responded with a partial smile, though anxiety still marked his expression. Derek shifted, glancing toward the establishment. Jasmine remained inside, still under Halverson's influence, and now Derek had clarity about his necessary course of action. Derek refused to delay, not when he recognized this behavioral pattern from previous encounters. He had ascended through the financial sector and understood how readily someone in authority could distort regulations to benefit themselves. The staff under Halverson's authority weren't merely uncomfortable, they were terrified, and Jasmine was positioned at the epicenter of this situation. Derek pushed forward through the transparent entranceway and re-entered the building. The financial institution was more subdued now. Fewer patrons, fewer observers, but Halverson remained present, located near the cashier positions, surveying the area as if he possessed it. Derek's stride was unwavering as he traversed the entrance hall. He bypassed the service counter. Without hesitation he proceeded directly toward Jasmine. She was engaged with a client, her speech robotic, her movements controlled, yet her gaze appeared vacant. She noticed Derek approaching, and subtly stiffened, as if anticipating complications. "Pardon me," Derek announced, just audibly enough for the customer to register. "I require a moment of conversation with you." Jasmine appeared momentarily bewildered. "I am currently assisting a customer, sir." The elderly woman before her directed a disapproving look at Derek. "She's currently helping me. You can wait." But Derek maintained his focus on Jasmine. "It's urgent," and she recognized it. She swallowed hard, apologized to the patron, and moved away from her station. Halverson immediately took notice. Derek observed him straighten his posture, eyes constricting. He was displeased by this loss of command. Jasmine guided Derek several paces away, fidgeting with her jacket's edge. How may I assist you, sir?" Derek inhaled slowly. The crucial moment had arrived. "I'm aware of the situation," he stated, maintaining a hushed tone. "You needn't explain anything. I simply want you to know you aren't isolated in this." Jasmine recoiled momentarily. For just an instant, she appeared on the verge of collapse, but she recovered, shaking her head, with a forced smile. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," Derek persisted. "Halverson, the extended work hours, his treatment toward you. I recognize this isn't acceptable." Jasmine's fingers tightened into clenched hands. This was terror in action, and fear indicated she believed no alternatives existed. "I cannot," she whispered. "You can," Derek asserted confidently. "And you will, because I guarantee he isn't beyond accountability." That's when Halverson approached. "Is everything all right here?" he inquired with artificial pleasantness. Glancing between them, Derek turned toward him, maintaining a neutral expression, just engaging in conversation. Halverson's insincere smile didn't reach his eyes. "Well, Jasmine has responsibilities to fulfill. She lacks time for personal discussions." Jasmine tensed at the term personal. Derek caught the reaction. "Actually," Derek responded, "I believe we should discuss matters immediately." Halverson's smug expression wavered. "Excuse me." Derek offered no response. Instead he reached into his pocket and extracted his wallet. He opened it, revealing his executive identification credential from Ashford National Bank. Jasmine inhaled sharply. Miles from across the room stared in astonishment. Halverson's face became utterly expressionless. "My name is Derek Lawson," he stated, voice unwavering, "Chief Executive Officer of this financial institution, and we need to have a discussion." Complete silence fell across the room. Halverson blinked repeatedly, his mouth opening then shutting. For the first time, he displayed nervousness. "Sir, I wasn't informed." "No, you weren't," Derek said, moving closer. "And therein lies the issue, doesn't it?" Jasmine drew an unsteady breath. looking between them, as if still comprehending the unfolding events. Derek turned to her, speaking gently. "You're protected now." And this time, she accepted his assurance. The quietness extended seemingly endlessly. Jasmine remained motionless, her breathing irregular. Miles, Kenny, and the remaining employees had ceased their activities. Glancing between Derek and Halverson, customers murmured among themselves, perceiving something more significant than a typical workplace disagreement. But Derek maintained unwavering eye contact with Halverson. "You and I need to converse in your office," Derek stated, his voice steady yet authoritative. Halverson attempted to speak, then stopped himself. He was desperately evaluating the extent of his predicament. Sir, Halverson stammered, "I guarantee there's been a misinterpretation. If you'd just allow me a moment to—" Derek remained stationary, unflinching. "Your office, immediately." Halverson gulped visibly, his self-assurance crumbling. He turned stiffly, and directed the way toward his office. Derek followed, but before entering, he turned back toward Jasmine. "Remain here," he said compassionately. "This won't require much time." Jasmine barely acknowledged, her hands shaking beside her. Derek entered the office, and shut the door behind him. Halverson seated himself at his desk, attempting to regain composure. He emitted a contrived laugh, shaking his head. "I must admit, sir, I hadn't anticipated your presence here tonight. Rather unconventional for the CEO to visit a location unannounced." Derek leaned forward, placing his hands on the desk. "You know what else is uncommon," he said, voice lowered. "A branch supervisor misusing his position to intimidate his staff." Halverson flinched. I understand your actions," Derek interrupted. "I know about the overnight shifts. I know about your behavior toward Jasmine, and I know you believe yourself untouchable." Halverson's complexion whitened. "Sir, I assure you, I have consistently conducted myself with professionalism. If there have been any misconceptions—" "Enough," Derek interrupted sharply. He wasn't interested in justifications. He reached into his pocket and retrieved his mobile device. With one motion he activated the recording. Jasmine's voice, raw and trembling, emerged from the speaker. "If I refuse his demands, I'll lose everything." Then Miles's hushed response. "Jasmine, you can't submit to him. He doesn't control you." All color vanished from Halverson's face. "You should have exercised better judgment," Derek said, his tone icier. "Now, you've engaged in this behavior extensively, haven't you? Exploiting employees most dependent on their positions, making them feel cornered. But understand clearly, your time has expired." Halverson's hands shook. "Please, I can justify." Derek stood upright. "No, you cannot." He extracted his phone again, this time connecting with corporate human resources. "You're terminated," Derek stated plainly. "You'll never secure employment in this sector again." Halverson sat there, immobilized as Derek moved toward the exit. His authority had vanished, and Derek, he wasn't finished yet. When Derek exited the office, the atmosphere in the lobby was palpable. Jasmine, Miles, Kenny, everyone awaited the outcome. Derek inhaled deeply, then addressed Jasmine directly. "He's dismissed," he said quietly. "You're secure now." Her lips parted slightly, her breath catching disbelief, relief. Then for the first time that evening, her shoulders relaxed. Miles released a gradual exhalation. Kenny appeared dumbfounded. Other employees exchanged glances, as if uncertain whether to trust what they had just witnessed. But Derek recognized this wasn't the conclusion. He addressed the team. "You've all been operating under someone undeserving of leadership. That changes immediately." Jasmine dabbed at her eyes, swallowing hard. "What occurs next?" Derek offered her a small reassuring smile. "That's for you to determine." Jasmine gazed at Derek, processing his statement. "That's for you to determine." For the first time in over 12 months, she experienced something unfamiliar. Authority. She glanced at Miles, who remained shocked, and then at Kenny, who offered a small tentative nod. They all awaited her response. Jasmine drew an unsteady breath. I don't want anyone else to endure this. Not at this location, not anywhere." Derek nodded. "And they won't." He addressed the remaining employees. "From this moment, this branch is under immediate evaluation. We'll implement reforms, not merely replacing Halverson, but ensuring no one similar acquires such influence again." The space remained quiet, but the significance of his statement settled in. Then Miles broke the silence. "Sir, I hope I'm not overstepping, but this extends beyond Halverson." Derek's attention sharpened. "Continue." Miles hesitated, but then stepped forward. His voice carried more conviction now. "The operational structure here isn't limited to one poor manager. The stress, our treatment, the fear of voicing concerns, it's more extensive than just this location." Kenny agreed with a nod. "Many of us feel compelled to endure it, because the moment we object, our employment terminates." Jasmine lowered her gaze, guilt crossing her features. "I wanted to resign numerous times," she confessed, "but financially, I couldn't afford to, and I wondered if perhaps this was standard practice." Derek's jaw tightened. This explained his undercover operation, not regarding statistics, not concerning performance evaluations, but because the genuine issues were concealed beneath the surface. He inhaled deeply. "This ends today." Everyone watched him, anticipating what followed. "I don't merely intend to repair this branch. I aim to transform the entire framework, and I'll require your assistance to accomplish that. This means openness. This means confidence. This means if something is wrong, you communicate it." Jasmine still appeared doubtful. "And if we do, will anyone genuinely listen?" Derek met her gaze. "I will." Jasmine evaluated him for an extended moment, then finally she nodded. For the first time that evening, she appeared convinced. 60 minutes later, Derek sat in his vehicle, observing the employees gradually secure the premises for the night. Jasmine exited with Miles and Kenny, the three conversing quietly. They seemed unburdened, as if the pressure of the past year had finally begun to diminish.